Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Canadian Football Central. CFL content for the fans, by the fans, and we have week one in the books, our week one review, with 4 games, which very much did not, for the most part, go the way I expected, but then again, kind of like last year. So, and if you haven't already, make sure you leave a like on the video, share this around, and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. So, Rick, I go 1 for 3. And the only one that I got right was the game I didn't want to be right. And you go 2 for 2. And so
Yes.
kind of a not great to mediocre record that we had this week. So shall we get into it?
We shall.
All right. Ottawa versus Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan defeats the Red Blacks 31-26. We live streamed this game. Big thank you to everyone who joined this live stream. And one thing I want to point out right off the start, because I heard this was also an issue in, I believe, the Alouettes-Argos game. If you're holding the ball for a field goal, hold the fucking ball right. Holy shit. Seriously. There was at least 2 in the Ottawa-Saskatchewan game. 2 field goals that did not happen, not because of the kicker missing it and screwing it up, but because the guy holding it wasn't holding it right. And so Ottawa had this happen once. Saskatchewan had this happen once. And then was it the Alouettes or the Argos that had it happen in their game?
I think it was like both teams.
I can't even remember, just because I remember my chat
look.
blowing up with people being like, holy crap, hold on to the ball, let him kick, you know? Like, what are we doing here? But, like, a few kind of key takeaways from before we kind of get into the numbers here in the Saskatchewan Ottawa game. Drew Brown looked very good. Braylon Addison with a very, very strong start, as well as Justin Hardy. Run game for Ottawa struggled for a while. They could not get it going until at least, I want to say, late third quarter that they finally started. They got 2 rushing touchdowns, but those were short. Like, those were not big yardage. And then Saskatchewan. Poor Saskatchewan. If you thought the injury train was over, oh boy, it is not. As A.J. Ouellette goes down, Keon Schaefer-Baker goes down, and then Roland Milligan Jr. goes down. So that's your top receiver, top running back, top defensive player, all gone in the first game of the year. As well as, I believe, another offensive lineman was down and a couple others.
And then don't forget the injuries for Ottawa, too.
Yeah, and then Ottawa dealt with some injuries, too. But, like, if I'm looking at Saskatchewan... Now, thankfully for Saskatchewan... just because people have questions kind of about the running back situation, as now Bertrand Hudon is your starter. But I actually thought he looked very solid. So I think as long as A.J. Ouellette's not injured long term, this will probably be what they're rolling with. I have to imagine that at some point Kadeem Carey gets signed by one of these teams in the CFL as injuries pile up and teams maybe are not getting the rushing success that they were hoping for out of the cores that they have selected. So Kadeem Carey and Fletcher and Kevin Brown are 3 decent picks of running backs that are currently free agents on the market. But Bertrand Hudon was solid, so I think they roll with him if it's short term. If it's long term, unless Bertrand Hudon puts up some really, really good numbers, I imagine they grab somebody else. As now, if Bertrand Hudon goes down, you're in big trouble, as now you have nothing past that. But shall we get into the stats here?
Sure.
Firstly, Drew Brown, 34 for 41, 413 passing yards. 2 touchdowns, no interceptions for Drew Brown. It was a simple case of Ottawa not being able to play defense the way that they needed to, and Ottawa struggling a little bit with the running game. Because they got that passing game was moving. They were moving the chains. They were going downfield. They were doing everything they had to do, except they couldn't quite get that. And so, if I'm looking here, just trying to remember, it was one of those things where Saskatchewan would just kind of get these quick little bursts of success, and the Ottawa defense would just collapse very quickly. It was 7-0 Ottawa going after the first quarter. Second quarter, Saskatchewan puts up 17 points. What is the Red Blacks' answer for that? Nothing. 17-7 for Saskatchewan going into halftime. Saskatchewan keeps that going with 14 points. in the third quarter. Ottawa was only able to put up 7 in return. And then Ottawa finally able to lock in defensively, keep the Riders to no points. They were able to grab 12th in the fourth quarter, but it just wasn't enough. So Saskatchewan, despite half this game, them not getting any points in both the first and fourth quarter respectively, they were able to kind of string together a couple touchdowns and a couple point drives when they needed to. 17 points in the second, 14 in the third. That was all that Saskatchewan needed. 31-26 victory. I don't think that this game was a sellout in Saskatchewan. Again, it was a Thursday night game. However, it was a home opener, so you're hoping for maybe a little bit more than that. I believe the attendance was around 29,000. Is that correct, Rick?
No, because usually 20. I'm not sure what the actual capacity is, but I do know that
capacity of Mosaic is 33,000.
Oh, because there's like 4,000 seats still not sold.
Okay, so that would be around 29,000 then.
Yeah.
Okay. No, that's what I was wondering. And so overall, Rick, what did you think of this? And again, thank you to everyone who joined the live stream.
I mean, what I find odd just by like looking at other games, it seems like some of these quarterbacks are like, just in general. I know we're gonna get into the other games, but there was 3 teams this week that had less than 50 rushing yards, and it turns out that their quarterbacks threw like 40 to 50 times.
Yeah, I can think of one that we're gonna get to at some point that threw.
Like even Drew Brown threw 41 times for 413 yards, 2 touchdowns, and it still wasn't good enough.
It kind of reminds me a little bit of kind of what Bo Levi Mitchell was dealing with last year, in the sense of where they were throwing just so many, and as much as he was getting all these passing yards, it just wasn't enough for them to get the win and get over the hump. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But all in all, like if we're looking at Ottawa here, Stanback leads them rushing in this game, 26 yards, not exactly great. Just wasn't, again, they really struggled to get that going. Justin Hardy and Braylon Addison both over 100 yards receiving, 133 for Hardy and 112 for Braylon Addison. Trevor Harris, 19 for 26, 277 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception for Trevor Harris. Bertrand Huden, 57 yards with an average of 4.1, so not horrible, but certainly was able to get them something. Ottawa kind of later in the game, especially in the fourth quarter, were finally able to kind of stop that, which is naturally going to make the average look worse than it actually is. But and then receiving, Samuel Emilus, definitely the standout receiver for Saskatchewan. He would get 8 receptions for 133 yards, 1 touchdown for Samuel Emilus. Emilus looked fantastic. There was only, if I'm looking here, Lewis Ward missed his one field, so he was 0 for 1 for field goals. Again, this was due to the missed hold of the ball. And then there were he got 2 extra points for Ottawa. Brett Lothar was 1 for 1 on field goals and got 4 extra points. And so I believe it was, because I'm trying to remember how many touchdowns Saskatchewan got. So they got 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, because I think Saskatchewan, when they went, the reason it didn't count as a field goal attempt on the Saskatchewan one is I think once they realized that he couldn't hold it, they actually tried to do something else. And I think Brett Lothar tried throwing it down the field. Is that correct, Rick? Does that sound right? On the one where he screwed up the hold, I think he picked it up and actually tried to like throw it down the field, like almost to look like a fake, but it wasn't intended to be like that. But it's just because they couldn't get a hold on it.
Yeah, I think that's what tried to happen, and it didn't.
That's why it says 1 for 1, and it doesn't count as a failed attempt technically, because I guess they're treating it as a fake. But leading the charge for Saskatchewan, Jameer Thurman, 1 sack, 10 tackles for him. Fantastic defensive game for Thurman and the Saskatchewan linebackers. Adarius Pickett, 6 tackles, leading the Red Blacks. But it's funny, despite all the injuries to the Saskatchewan Roughriders, especially on that offensive line, they were able to hold strong. That offensive line was pretty darn good for the most part, despite all the injuries that they've had. So, Rick, is there
It's
anything
going to be
else you'd say?
interesting to see what the injury report says on Tuesday.
Yeah, and that's where I think, as much as this game is obviously an exciting start for the Saskatchewan Roughriders, this game might actually be worse for them than it's one
People
of those
think.
things. They won the game, but at what cost? They lost
Yeah.
their number one receiver, their number one defensive player, and their number one running back. AJ Ouellette
So
in Saskatchewan has not been able to stay healthy. It has just been a constant problem.
so the question then is, yeah, I know Kadeem Carey is out there and everything, but I would at least give Hudon a chance
Oh, absolutely.
before you go and sign Kadeem Carey.
Yeah, especially since I think there was a lot of things. I think he was kind of a promising look in that game. There was a lot of stuff about him that made him look very appealing in terms of, maybe this guy's ready for a bit of a bigger opportunity. But that's pretty much all I got on this one. Is there anything else you got, Rick?
Not really.
All right,
Like
so
I
we're
said,
going
it's
to
going
move
to be
on.
interesting when their injury report comes out on Tuesday
Yeah.
as to who's injured and who's not.
Well, we'll be factoring in that to our preview of next week, as I think next week is the Elks bye week, I believe. But anyways, we will get into our second game of the week, which was the Montreal Alouettes defeating the Toronto Argonauts by a score of 28-10. And so overall, strong start for the Alouettes here. Davis Alexander looked good, relatively, 19 for 26. Which is good in the sense of, like we were talking about, some of these other teams had to throw it 40, 50 times. Montreal didn't need to do that. 19 for 26, 205 passing yards, average of 7.9 yards on average. One touchdown, one interception, just kind of run-of-the-mill numbers. Decent. Nothing incredible, but nothing horrible either. Sean Thomas Erlington, an average of 5.1, got picked up 86 yards. And then if we look at the receiving stats for the Alouettes here, leading the receiving corps was Austin Mack with 51 on 5 receptions. Then Tyson Philpott with 48 yards on 4 receptions for 1 touchdown. And then just kind of going down the lineup. But Alouettes very much kind of spreading the ball around in that sense. Whereas if we kind of go to the Argos side of things, Nick Arbuckle, 20 for 32, 273 passing yards, 8.5 yards on average, 1 touchdown, but then 2 interceptions. Definitely something that you're not wanting to see for Toronto. Nick Arbuckle also led them in rushing yards with 17 yards, which I'm not going to lie, if you're Toronto, I would be very, very concerned about the rushing game, because it was a bold choice cutting both Kevin Brown and Kadeem Carey, especially Kadeem Carey. Because Kevin Brown, he had not had kind of that 1,000-yard rushing in, a couple of years or whatever. Kadeem Carey, you guys won the Grey Cup with last year, and then he gets cut. I saw a lot of Argos fans complaining about this in terms of, the CFL. It's kind of hard to market a league when players are jumping ship and going, when there's no players team loyalty sort of thing. In the sense of, if you look at a lot of NHL teams and NFL rosters, your top guys on each team are going to be there for a good amount of years. And so people kind of are able to link names to faces and whatnot. And so for the casual fan, it can be hard to get in if the team looks incredibly different every single year. And so that was one complaint I heard kind of being thrown around when Kadeem Carey was cut. But 17 rushing yards leading the team, not good. So that's something that Toronto's going to need to figure out in the future weeks. Coxie and Unger III were kind of the 2 receivers leading the charge here for Toronto. 99 yards receiving for Coxie, 82 for Unger III. In terms of field goals, Toronto was 1 for 1, and then also an extra point. Lyram Haralahu with a 45-yard field goal. And then for Montreal, Maltos got 2 field goals on 3 attempts. Hit the extra point, and his longest of his field goals was a 31-yarder. Rick, would you like to give some input?
Feedback?
Yeah.
So the question that I have is the Arbuckle that played in this game. Is this the real Arbuckle? Or is this just like the Arbuckle,
Will
okay,
the real
he
Slim
had one
Shady
down
please
game. We're
stand
going
up?
to get the same Arbuckle. If Kelly's not 100% next week, we're going to get the same Arbuckle
Yeah, I'm
from
not
the
gonna
Grey
lie.
Cup.
This start kind of looks like the Arbuckle that we've kind of been used to in the regular season. Now, but again, at the end of the day, one thing you can never take away from Nick Arbuckle is that he was a Grey Cup MVP, in that he did perform when they needed it most. But in this game, just not exactly the numbers you're looking for. Again, not a ton of offense, only 10 points, two whole quarters. They put up a big fat donut. They don't get anything. Whereas Montreal just plays mostly consistent through the majority of this game. Definitely hurt in the second quarter with there being a fumble that would then be returned for a touchdown. As it was Adiemi Berglund, 17-yard fumble recovery, touchdown for Montreal. So really not good when the ball kind of goes the other way in that regard. And the Alouettes made them pay in that sense. And so overall, the Alouettes, their systems work very well with Davis Alexander. Again, it had looked very good last year that when he was in there. I just was concerned with the Alouettes in the sense of that they had only bled talent. They had not really acquired anything new. However, it's one of those things where there's still a very, very good roster there. And so, yeah, this is why I had such a hard time doing my predictions at the start of the year. I could already tell you after week one, I'd already changed quite a bit, especially out east. And so it's one of those things where it's only 1 week, though. There's a lot that can change. However, good start for the Alouettes. They went on a big win streak last season to start the year. I imagine they're trying to do something similar. And Toronto Argonauts, defending Grey Cup champions, already in the hole. Got to imagine that they just try to shake that off and get back to the brand of football that's been able to bring them a couple of Grey Cups in the past few years. So,
And one last thing that I'm going to mention
mm-hmm.
with how well Sean Thomas Erlington did running the ball, do you think like Alouettes like regret releasing Fletcher, or is it just like
time
it
will
is what
tell,
it
my
is?
friend. So far,
I mean,
it
yeah, it
looks like
is
he's
only
done
one
well.
game, but still.
So far, it's only been one game. But it's one of those things where if the Alouettes were going to feel any regret over that situation, I don't think they'd be feeling it yet. But
True.
we will see. Because at the end of the day, the Toronto Argonauts don't have quite the defensive line that they used to. Again, not that their defensive line is bad by any means. It absolutely is not. It's just a little different when you don't have Jared Brinkman and Jake Ceresna there. But that'll bring us into the third game of the week, which was where the Calgary Stampeders defeated the Hamilton Tiger Cats by a score of 38-26. Rick, did you live stream this game, right? Over on Ticats
I
Hockey
did.
Network.
So a couple of things. So it was very interesting to see, like, yeah, Adams, I think, started the game, what, like 9 for 9, 10 for 10, something stupid like that. But it's like their offense goes down the field, Ticats offense goes down the field. Then it's
Yeah.
like they go down the field again, and then like Ticats offense goes down there. So it's kind of like
I
back
mean,
and
yeah, we're
forth.
talking about
Um,
we're talking about an
offense
over
versus
60-point
offense.
game, so yeah.
Yeah. And then the secondary, I'm not gonna lie, there was some goods, there was some bads.
Yeah.
You got to stop pressuring the whole Kenny Lawler, Bowen, Kenny Lawler thing. It's gonna come. I mean, look at the Drew Brown and Eugene Lewis. I think Eugene Lewis went 5 for 7. Kenny Lawler went 6 for 13. If it's not there, don't pressure it. If it's there, okay, then it's there. I found Bo throwing balls over people's heads when they definitely are not tall enough to catch it.
Yeah.
We didn't have
This is an
much
issue
of a
that
run
Trey
game.
Ford would then have a little bit in his game as well.
I mean, it was in a lot of games that I noticed this week.
Yep. It's week one. So.
Bo went 31 for 50, 304 yards. Again, they had to come from behind. And it's weird because like when I watched the third quarter, I thought it was a regular kickoff.
Yeah.
I don't know if you watch this game or not, but for
I
some
did not.
reason the ball bounced, it hit one of our players, and their player recovered it.
Yeah.
Because I'm doing the live stream and I'm doing the play-by-play, and I'm like, okay, who the heck is K Thomas? Because play-by-play was a bit had more than my TV was, and I'm thinking, who is K Thomas on the team? And then when I watched the highlights, I'm like, you got to be kidding me. But I mean, Tim White had one rush for 14 yards. Greg Bell 8 for 14. I mean, it's a split on Ticat fans. If was it right to keep Greg Bell? Was it bad not to keep James Butler? It's still out there. Lee Trey was 2 for 12. There was a point late in the game where it was like 2nd and 1. They went with Greg Bell twice. That's why you have friggin' Lee Trey, for Pete's sake.
Yeah.
Bo ran for 1 carry for 11 yards. The whole Nick Constantino thing, he went to go punt. I don't know if it was supposed to be a fake punt, but when he went to go punt the ball, he never had time to get it off. So he's like, okay, you know what? I'm going to try to run this. And he only got 1 yard instead of whatever it ended up being. Keandre Smith ran for -5 yards. Now, for receiving, Kenny Lawler did get a touchdown. So, I mean, 6 for 13, 87 yards.
Yep.
Average of 14.5. It's just
First touchdown in the black and
some of
gold.
these passes that players were not able to catch. Either they had 2 or 3 players on them. It was over their head. I mean, even Tim White dropped 3. I mean, that's nothing new, but I mean, he had 69 yards, 6 for 9.
I was about to say, I think we went on that adventure.
Orange.
I think we went on that adventure last year when it came to Tim White.
But I mean, even like Brandon O'Leary Orange went 5 for 7. Keandre Smith, there was 2 or 3. There's at least 2 passes that he should have had that he bumbled it.
Yeah.
Or fumbled it, I should say, in his hands. Greg Bell had 6 for 7. Shamar Bridges, 3 for 6 for 26 yards. The thing that makes me mad the most about this offense is they need to stop throwing 1 to 3 yards on like first downs. I don't know what those 1 to 3 yard passes are going to get you. If they're not there, fucking run with the ball.
Yeah.
Do something.
At that point, you'd have better luck rushing the ball, in the sense of if you're going for these 1 to 3 yard passes, all you're doing is getting
You're
either the same amount or is less than you would rushing, and you're risking it because you're throwing the ball, you're giving an opportunity for an interception, you're taking an unnecessary risk in that sense.
So like Carter, I also took notes during the game.
Oh yeah, there you go. Good job.
So when it comes to our defense, yes, we need a better run defense. Like, I think Mills had 94 yards and 3 touchdowns. I mean, 2 of them were short yardage touchdowns, but we need better run defense. Jamal Peters led the team with 7 defensive tackles, followed by Brandon Dozier. Quite surprised Brandon Dozier didn't even play in the preseason. Our linebackers were left for something to be desired. Wasn't too impressed with their linebackers. Like I said, our secondary, Cacciatona should have had 2 interceptions, but 1 was called back due to an offside. Jonathan Moxley got the other one, so there's 2 there. Mario Kendricks got a sack in the end zone for a safety. Isaiah Bagna got 1 for his first career safety or sack because it's his first year as a rookie.
Yeah.
Wooden Senior, the guy who's filling in for Lawrence Woods II, 105-yard punt return for a touchdown. He basically ran into like 4 people and then turned left and he was gone.
Oh my goodness.
Offensive line looked good. no sacks against.
Oh yeah.
So considering that most teams gave up sacks this week. The other good thing that I liked about our defense is Vernon Adams had 284 yards, no touchdowns. So there was a plus on that. Our run game was just atrocious.
Yeah.
I looked, we had like 59 yards. Ain't gonna get much.
I think you
And we
got. I
need to
think
clean
your
up on the
leading
penalties.
rusher had 14 yards, just like himself, like just your leading rusher.
Two people had 14 yards, but still, you ain't gonna get much.
Yeah. Well, you gotta have one guy.
When you're doing
ship,
the last game, and when you're talking about the last game, no East team this week, whether it be Ottawa, Toronto, or Hamilton, had more than 60 rushing yards.
Yeah.
Legio went 3 for 3. Can't always rely on the field goal game. We got an extra point. We were getting singles, safeties. I mean, you name it. Ticats were getting points off it, except for a pick 6.
Yeah.
And a rushing touchdown. But on the Calgary side,
well, especially when
Vernon Adams went.
He threw 2 interceptions, no touchdowns, and yet
yes,
the Ticats still weren't able to quite get it this game. So
I mean, you got to remember they had 158 rushing yards.
Yeah.
Between 3 people. Walker got a rushing touchdown. Out of all people, who would have thought Clark Barnes was going to be the go-to receiver this week? You would have thought Bagleton, Philpott. Barnes had 112, went 4 for 4. Bagleton went 5 for 7 for 58. Tevin Jones went 4 for 7 for 48. Dominic Grimes only had 1 pass for 15 yards. Jalen Philpott went 2 for 5 for 21. Markel Lee had 10 defensive tackles. They had no sacks, no interceptions, no fumble recoveries. I mean, their defense, I would say, is... we gave up 38 points. But, I mean, their defense is going to have some problems this year if you cannot get to the quarterback.
Are you talking with
Paredes went 3 for 3 for extra single points. I was actually quite surprised with their punter, Fraser Mazin. 4 punts, average of 57.5. This guy has a boot. His longest was like
75 yards. Damn.
There was a point where he kicked it like 80 yards or 75 yards and landed on our 2.
Oh my god. So he's just got one.
Yeah, and then Brooks and Jones for
leg.
kickoff return. There's really nothing there.
Yeah.
So you ready for the whole breaking news?
Yes, you said you told me before we were recording. You have not told me what it is, but there's
depends
some sort of breaking news of the Ticats.
Depends on how you look at it. I've gotten some mixed reactions. One person said that it was baffling. Some people are saying interesting news. Other people are saying why. Ticats assigned Jake Dolegala to our practice squad. Yes. Jake Dolegala to our practice squad.
That is certainly a move. Not a bad one. Actually, I actually quite like Jake Dolegala.
But you would think like Shea Patterson.
Yeah, no, you'd think that Patterson would
Cameron Dukes.
Well, I don't know, but you feel like Shea Patterson would be kind of the go-to, but I don't hate that move for them, actually, to be honest. Again, because I actually don't mind Dolegala. I think Dolegala is decent. So, So what is your reaction then, if I may ask?
I mean,
you're the designated.
What are they going to use him for? No, but I mean, what are they going to use him for?
Is he your backup? Or do you go to Taylor Powell first?
The thing is, But yeah, Bo was limping at certain points. Is Bo? I mean, I didn't see Bo limp. Is it bad enough that Powell is going to start and
You want Patterson there with him as well to
Jake Dolegala is going to be back up? Like, time will tell come Tuesday um when the injury reports come out.
yeah.
Do they not have faith with Harrison Frost as a third string?
As a third
And
string. Maybe not.
do they bring Jake Dolegala in as a short yardage quarterback?
He's a decent runner, so I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe that's the reason that they picked Dolegala over Patterson. I think Dolegala has got a bit more running capabilities than Shea Patterson.
Who knows?
But I think Shea Patterson has a better arm. But should we get into the last game of the week?
The game that threw us all off for a curveball?
Yes, which is where the BC Lions defeated the Edmonton Elks by a score of 31-14. I'm not necessarily surprised that BC won, even though I took Edmonton. I'm kind of surprised how they won, though. I'm a little bit surprised at stuff I expected from Edmonton that I just didn't get. Now, firstly, before the show started, Snoop Dogg with a performance. Good job, Snoop Dogg. As honestly, that's something where I living here in Winnipeg, I wish we got something like that. That would be fun. It's funny. I'm not even necessarily a big Snoop. I'm not a huge rap person in general, but I don't mind some of the earlier stuff. But Snoop Dogg, I feel like would just be a fun show to see before a football game. So packed house in BC, 60,000 for the home opener for BC. Incredible attendance for the BC Lions. And
so the interesting thing that I see is I've seen people spatting over this on social media of how people were leaving after the Snoop Dogg. I mean, generally it is what it is. You're always going to get...
I'm going to be honest. I watched the end of this game, and it was still pretty full close to the end of this game. Are there some people that probably left after that show? Yes, this was bound to happen. The BC Lions knew this when they did this. But the goal is that let's say you would have had 30,000 for a home opener, assuming no Snoop Dogg concert. Okay, Rick? Rick? Can you hear me?
No, I heard you.
You heard me? Okay. Let's say you have 30,000 that would have shown up assuming no Snoop Dogg concert, okay? That's your attendance without Snoop, okay? Mm-hmm. You add Snoop to the mix. And let's say you go up to 60,000. And let's assume, like, worst case scenario, you lose 25,000. Which is not what happened. Way less than that walked out. Not even close. Let's assume 25,000 people walk out. And you have 5,000 people stick around, okay? That's now 5,000 people that wouldn't have gone to a football game that now you've gotten into the building. And maybe not all of those 5,000 people would go to more games that year. I wouldn't be surprised if at least half of them go to at least one more game that year. Again, this is assuming worst case scenario. I'm still saying it's a good marketing strategy. It's a great marketing strategy. It is, if you look at the attendance in BC before this new owner came in, before they had the One Republic show, before they had the 50 Cent show, before they now had the Snoop show, he has turned the attendance around in BC. BC has went from having this massive building that will not even get a quarter full to a building that they can consistently get 50% capacity in, which 50% capacity wouldn't look good in a lot of CFL venues, but in BC Place, with a 60,000 seat stadium, 50% is fantastic. I mean, that's $30K.
But I mean, it's more than just that. You got to think concession stands, merch store.
Anyone that buys any of that stuff. It works. Again, even if they paid Snoop like $50,000 for that performance, it's one of those things you got to spend money to make money. You go to BC, you walk around Vancouver now. You see ads for this team in the subway, on the streets, everywhere. I've seen it with my own eyes. I was there. And you can just tell that this fan base in BC is reinvigorated. And so overall, Excellent marketing strategy. Realistically, if I'm based on what I saw watching the televised broadcast, there is not a chance in hell more than 10,000 people walked out after that Snoop performance. I'm saying that the bare minimum in terms of people that were in that building, after everyone had, all the people that were going to leave left, they were still at 50,000. This attendance looked very good. And it was loud, and that was a bit of an issue for Edmonton at times, but not a typically high-scoring game in the first half here. Both teams just not getting a ton going. The second half of this game is where things really start to pick up. So Trey Ford would go 18 for 27, 178 yards, 6.6 yards on average, no touchdowns, 1 interception. Not going to lie, I don't like the interception he threw because I did watch kind of a bit of the second half of this game, especially the fourth quarter. Didn't like the pick he threw. It was just a really bad underthrow. However, Rick, did you see the Trey Ford play that I'm about to mention here, where he escapes the pocket, he's winding back, and reminder, this was they were 3rd and 2. It was either 3rd or 2nd and 2, and so they just needed 2 yards, and so you think they might just rush it because I mean they got some great running backs, Rankin, Leak. They got some great running backs there that have been able to be very successful for us. Trey Ford's running all over the place, avoiding tackles. He's like 25 yards behind his own line of scrimmage. Throws a pass that he somehow finds Justin Rankin. And then Rankin's able to get them down to like, I want to say like the 5-yard line or less than that. And it was just an incredible play by Edmonton to move the ball forward. So even though Edmonton had its problems, there's a lot of promise here. Unfortunately though, the rushing game in general wouldn't be able to get going a ton, but Justin Rankin was a bit of a dual threat in this game as he had 5 receptions for 67 yards and 7 rushes for 25 yards. So he was 2nd in rushing yards for Edmonton, 1st in receiving yards. 2nd in receiving yards was Arkell Smith, who got 2 receptions for 55 yards, including near the end of the game where Arkell Smith is just blown up, like just absolutely decimated. I'm trying to, I wrote down here, I think it was Williams on BC, who basically drops the shoulder and kills Arkell Smith. Now, Williams is assessed a unnecessary roughness penalty. I'm not going to lie, I don't like this penalty. Even as someone was cheering for Edmonton in this game, that was what I wanted my prediction to be right. And generally, I don't really care if Edmonton or BC win this game, but I wanted to be right on my predictions, so I was hoping there. This should not have been an unnecessary roughness penalty. As much as that is a very hard hit. Does his helmet come off? Yeah. However, Williams never hits his head. He never goes for his head. He doesn't hit him in the head. He hits him in the chest. He doesn't hit him below the knees. He hits him hard, yeah. And I understand that some people are like, well, he could have went for a tackle where he didn't need to hit him so hard. Yeah, but if you're a defensive player, you want to have those hard hits. Why? Because the harder you hit, as much as it's a clean, as long as you're doing a clean hit, the more likely you are to pop that ball out and create a turnover. And so it's one of those things where I hope Arkell Smith is okay. I never wish for injury upon anyone. But it's one of those things, there should not have been a penalty in this play. I thought that was a hard hit, a painful hit, definitely one you wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of. But I didn't see anything illegal about it. I thought it was clean. Not going to lie, Edmonton, you got to figure out your kicking game. Blanchard, I don't think he's the answer. He went
Dean
0 for
Faithful
2.
and Dean Faithful and Boris Beatty are still unemployed.
Yep. 2 guys he had in the system last year. Of course, us at the channel, big fan of Dean Faithful. If you want to see a fantastic interview with him, you can check that out. We did one. Very, very nice guy. Nice fellow, as some would say. Cody Fajardo was fine in short yardage, but both teams had a bit of struggles in short yardage kind of near the start of this game. Looking over at the BC side of things, Nathan Rourke, 27 for 36, 324 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, an average of 9.0. yards per throw, 0 interceptions. This was 2022 Nathan Rourke. Nathan Rourke was locked in, and I'm not going to lie, Buck Pierce's playbook worked very, very well with Nathan Rourke and worked very well with Justin McInnis. As for as annoying Glenn Suter was this game, because every time he's on the television, it's tempting to turn it off. The this he had a very good analysis here of one of the things that really makes Buck Pierce's playbook work well, and it's that it's very, very confusing if you're playing zone coverage, which a lot of the CFL does, where there's a lot of crossing routes all over the place, and they'll have one guy swing into the flats, one guy motion before the snap across, and then cut through center. And then Justin McInnis would run straight, and then he'd kind of bank towards the sideline into the end zone. Justin McInnis would get a receiving touchdown on that play. He went 5 for 45. However, Barry Hill III, 6 receptions, 105 yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. He looked very, very good for BC. So this receiving core, despite some of the concerns they had about, they looked very effective. They were good. Barry Hill, Katoy, Hatcher, McInnis were kind of your top 4. James Butler was decent. 10 rushes, 68 yards. Not a whole lot you can complain about there. He gets a rushing touchdown as well for them. Sean White, 1 for 1, and then got all 4 extra points for the Lions. Again, very, very much different than Blanchard on the Elks side of things. However, if we're going to talk a little bit about the Elks, one of the issues I got to say is if you're the Elks defense, you expect more of that out of that D-line. The Elks secondary was okay. Nick Anderson was fantastic. He was exactly like he was last year. 9 tackles for him. Really was able to put pressure on Nathan Rourke in certain situations where he blitzed, forcing Nathan Rourke to have to throw that out of bounds. And then on the BC side of things, Matthew Betts looked like he was closer to his 2022 form. Not all the way there, as I mean, he didn't get any sacks, which 2022 Matthew Betts would have gotten like 4 sacks in this one game, knowing with the way he played. But he certainly looked closer to that. And then Robert Carter Jr. Did very, very well for them, defensive back for the BC Lions. He had 7 tackles, and they were showing some of his highlights from him in college, in which he had probably one of the most insane interceptions I've ever seen, where he catches it with one hand, with like almost the back of his hand, and whips it around and grabs it. I'm sure you can probably find the clip online. Robert Carter Jr. interception when he played college football. Overall, he was decent for the Lions. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where BC was able to, despite having a slower first and second quarter, they got 14 points in the third and 14 points in the fourth quarter, and it just was way too much. And of course, that interception that Trey Ford threw was very much at the absolute wrong time, and it kind of just killed the Elks' momentum to coming back into this game, and so BC would win 31-14. Rick, is there anything you got?
Yeah, I know people are gonna say it takes time for teams to gel and everything, but that Elks defense.
For me, it's the D line more than for me. It's the D line more than anything. I really expected more. It's not that I expected them to be unstoppable.
No
and
sacks,
18
no
sacks.
interceptions.
It's like no sacks whatsoever. Like, I don't know. I just, with how much money that they paid for that D line, I think you expect more results out of that.
That's what I mean. Like, money can't buy everything sometimes.
Yeah, no, and it's...
Sometimes you just got to draft and develop.
Yep, and so not the results that the Elks were looking for out of that defense, but...
So, I'm going to... I have one last thing to mention, because I know we have a lot of Bomber fans for subscribers, and... I know we still have a preview to come out, but between now and then, I want to know, with what people saw last night, are Bomber fans nervous for this week? With no Claros, with a Strevler?
I don't know. The thing is, and here's why. I'm going to give you perspective from me as I'm a Bomber fan. As much as there's maybe nerves in the sense of BC looks good, BC's looked good before. It's not like
True.
BC's never looked good when we've went against BC. And can you remind me what happened to BC in the West Final when they looked really, really good and they were going against Winnipeg? I'm having a hard time remembering.
At the same time,
I think what happened is that BC had to walk home because they lost and weren't going to the big dance.
But it will be interesting to see what you guys have for an actual full playbook.
BC looks very good.
And you guys are missing like 12 players from last year's team too.
Yes, this is true.
So that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying you guys won't do bad. I'm just saying I'm interested to see how things are going to turn out.
I think the most interesting plot line though in this is Mike O'Shea versus Buck Pierce. How does it go? Too. That, in my opinion, is the big one. And I'm really curious to see. You got the Buck Pierce offense, but then you got that Jordan Younger shut down, suffocate you defense. How does that kind of go against each other? How does that go? I'm very curious for that. So as much as, maybe I could be nervous in a sense of BC looks very, very good and the Bombers are just kind of a big question mark because they haven't played any games yet. And of course, Caleros is out. More than anything, I'm just excited. I'm excited to see regular season football in IG Field, Princess Auto Stadium, whatever you want to call it. And I'm just excited to be there and cheer on my Bombers. So, but we're going to have a preview video for this coming week come out in probably the next few days. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that. Might also have some other content. We're looking actually for some content ideas. So I haven't done it yet. And actually, Rick, I was going to mention this to you. I want to set up, there's like a Google form that you could do where I could then post it in the link of each of our videos, and it'll allow people to give like video suggestions that we could take a look at. So I haven't done that yet, but I want to do that at some point, as I think that would be really, really great. So if you guys have any video ideas, we don't have that set up yet, so feel free to just comment it in the comment section down below, as we're looking to do a lot of content in addition to just the previews and reviews that we will always be doing week by week. So if you have any ideas, let us know. If you guys like the video, make sure you do that. If you enjoyed it, make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. If you guys are listening to this on Spotify, first of all, thank you. Second of all, if you could leave us 5 stars, we would very much appreciate that. And Rick, is there anything else you got? All right. Without further ado, peace, love, and positivity, all you wonderful people at home, and we will see you guys next time.